ASU may not be playing this weekend, but there's still a lot of big games to check out today. And I don't know, Big 12 might have game of the week.
You are Locked On Sun Devils, your daily podcast on the Arizona State Sun Devils.
Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome back to the Locked On Sun Devils podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. My name is Richie Bradshaw, and I will be your guide for everything Arizona State Sun Devils. A special shout out to my everydayers who are here every day, and thanks to all of you for making us your first listen of the day. Don't forget to hit like, subscribe, turn on notifications wherever you're getting your shows. Stay in touch by following me on Twitter at RichieBrads36 and the podcast at LO_Sun Devils. Ladies and gentlemen, we don't have ASU football today. The Sun Devils are enjoying their second bye week. Totally blessed for that, by the way. We desperately needed 2 bye weeks this year. The first one to get us back on track to prepare for Big 12 play. The second to get healthy with Sam Leavitt sidelined. Worked out great. In the meantime, this is a good week of college football. It's got a lot of really underrated games throughout the country, but this is a good slate for the Big 12. And the Big 12 has a game that I truly think might be one of the most intriguing in the country. So let's go ahead and start the conversation with the Big 12, where everybody except ASU and Iowa State are competing this weekend. First of all, we have number 11 BYU at UCF. BYU, they're the top team in the conference. They are going to look to be they're going to look to continue to be unbeaten. They're 7-0 heading into this game. They want to be 8-0. Surpassing expectations has been one of the biggest understatements of the Cougars this year. This is just another chance for them to continue piling on wins to their very impressive Big 12 resume and strengthen their case to go to the title game. UCF, they've slumped. Started the year really good. They have not been good down the stretch. Maybe they play spoiler. I don't know. Second game, OK State, at Baylor. A battle of the underwhelming teams. OK State was supposed to be one of the best teams in the Big 12. That they are not. They should be a bowl team. They should be about 6-6, maybe 7-5. This is not a good team. Baylor, there wasn't high expectations going into the year for Baylor, but this still feels like a pretty big letdown for them. The biggest story here is ASU plays OK State next week, so here's a good chance to get one more game under your belt so that you just have as much game film as possible and that you have the most recent film as possible and you get to sit there and watch it. Texas Tech is at TCU. Texas Tech is trying to rebound from last week's loss. They need to get back into this title race in the Big 12, which feels wide open right now. Like, sure, you have BYU is undefeated. Iowa State is undefeated. K-State, who we're going to talk about in a minute, is also in a really good spot. But Texas Tech is not that far behind everybody else. The Red Raiders need to bounce back, and they need to do it in a big way. Here's a great opportunity to add another win to that resume for your Big 12 title chances. TCU, not been great, pretty underwhelming. They should be right around 6-6. I don't know if they get there. They're going to be right there. Same thing as UCF. Maybe you play spoiler. If TCU wins, Texas Tech's dreams of going to the Big 12 title game are gone. Every game from here on out for the Red Raiders is must win. Starts with this one. West Virginia is at Arizona. Fun fact, this is the first time these two programs have ever played each other. Pretty crazy. Both of these teams have been slumping as of late. Arizona was another team that was supposed to be one of the best in the conference. They have been one of the worst. You just got to call it as it is. Turns out Noah Fifita is no better than Anu Solomon, is no better than Brandon Dawkins, is no better than Jaden DeLora, is no better than insert other underwhelming U of A quarterback. Take away Tetero and McMillan from this offense and watch how quickly Fifita falls apart. He's thrown a pick in every game this year. He's not good. McMillan, he's streaky. Fun fact, in odd games, he goes over 100 yards. Even games, he's like well under 100. This is an even game. Or an odd game? Well, now I can't remember. I think it's an odd game for them because Arizona's had their bye week. Whatever. McMillan is basically the way that Arizona lives and dies. These two teams, they've basically played themselves out of the title race. West Virginia was undefeated in the conference at one point. They've dropped their last 2 games. They're out of it. Arizona, they're just totally out of it. Utah at Houston. Utah is just in free fall, man. They are in absolute free fall right now. I don't know what to do with them. I don't know if there's any chance that they can redeem and save their season. They're certainly not winning the Big 12 title at this point. They're hopefully a 6-6 bowl team. This is just bad, man. Houston, meanwhile, is really bad, but they have walked their way into a couple of wins this year. Can they capitalize and get a statement win over Utah? And it would be a statement win for Houston because even though Utah is bad right now, Houston is worse. And yet, here they are with a really big opportunity to stun the Utes at home. Kansas is at number 16, K-State. Kansas, arguably the most disappointing team in the Big 12, the team that I picked to win the conference preseason. Well, that just shot me right in the face. Absolutely backfired. K-State, they are almost as good as advertised. They've looked a little beatable. Avery Johnson has been up and down this year, but the highs of Avery Johnson have led to more wins than the lows have led to losses. They're welcoming the Jayhawks to the Little Apple. There's a lot on the line here for K-State. They're trying to keep up with BYU and with Iowa State. They're waiting for them to slip up in Big 12 competition so that they can leapfrog them to get back into the top 2 race for that Big 12 title. This is a must-win for them. Kansas, they're just not good. They're not going to win this game. If they do, I'll eat my hat. I don't know. Last game in the Big 12, and truly a very underrated game. Cincinnati at Colorado. I'm putting it out there. This might be game of the week. It's certainly game of the week in the Big 12. I said it. I will stand by that. This is one of the most underrated games in the country. I understand neither team's ranked. It's not top 25 versus top 25. It's not first place in the conference versus second place in the conference. I get that. However, these two teams have been very sneaky good in the conference this year. They're both 5-2. They are both in control of their destiny. They're not in the Big 12 title race, but they're not out of it. They would need a lot to go right in their direction. But they're two teams that are very much on the upswing right now. Two teams that have far exceeded expectations. Again, these are two teams that were expected to be in the bottom tier of the Big 12. I certainly was not high on them. I think I had Cincinnati second to last, and I had the Buffs probably like 12 or 13th. I did not think that either of them were going to be bowlers this year. And lo and behold, they're one game away from each going to bowl games. It's a really exciting game. Super duper underrated. It's part of the nightcap. So if you're willing to stay up, tune in. This is going to be a good football game. For what it's worth, I personally am taking the over, courtesy of our friends over at FanDuel. But you know what? We're going to talk about FanDuel in just a moment. When we get back from that, we're going to break down the biggest games across the country that you need to be paying attention to. Coming up next is the Locked On Sun Devils podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Let me talk to you about our friends over at Prize Picks. You're probably asking what Prize Picks is, and Prize Picks is daily fantasy made easy. It's the best place to get real money sports action with over 10 million members and billions of dollars in award winnings. Prize Picks has made the daily fantasy sports game accessible to all. You just pick more or less than 2 players on their potential stats. You can win up to 100 times your cash. Run your game all season long on Prize Picks. You can now win up to 100 times your money with as little as 4 correct picks. Those picks can include Justin Jefferson. Is he going to have more than 80-something receiving yards, or is he going to have less than 80-something receiving yards? If you took him to have more on Thursday night against the Rams, you're a winner. What are you going to do about Derrick Henry yards? Oh, more or less than his projected total? Patrick Mahomes passing yards, more or less? It's up to you to make those decisions. Prize Picks, it's amazing. It's so much fun. It's really easy to play. It's the best way to get action on sports in over 30 states, including California, Florida, Georgia, and Texas. And Prize Picks puts their members first. All withdrawals are fast, safe, and secure. When my picks hit, I can get my money back in as quickly as 15 minutes. Download the app right now. Use the code LOCKEDONCollege. Get $50 instantly after you place your first $5 lineup. Again, download the app today. Use code LOCKEDONCollege and get $50 off, $50 instantly, after you place your first $5 bet. Prize Picks, you don't need a slogan when winning is this good. Let's talk about our friends over at FanDuel. FanDuel, my NFL fans, my basketball fans, my hockey fans, my baseball fans who are watching the Fall Classic, whoever you are, FanDuel is willing to provide you a big return for the season, America's #1 sportsbook. When you get a hunch in the middle of the game, let's talk about NFL games for a second, and you're checking out the Chiefs at the Raiders tomorrow. You get that hunch in the middle of the game, you say, I got to take a look. You can check out the latest stats. You can view live play-by-play and so much more on the exact same page where you're placing your bets. You're going to know exactly how you feel when you want to take that over, that under, that money line, that player prop, whatever. You also get started with $200 in bonus bets guaranteed when you place your first $5 bet. So if you do want to talk about that money line, put $5 down, boom, $200 in bonus bets. That's FanDuel.com to get started. FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook. All right, let's go ahead and round this bad boy out with some games across the nation that you should be paying attention to. And there's a lot. This is a really good week in college football. I think it's a really underrated week. We're coming off 2 weeks ago was probably the greatest week of college football I've ever seen in my life. There's nothing like it. Last week one was pretty darn good too, especially with Georgia, Texas. This week, you don't have a Georgia, Texas. You got a lot of good ranked games. I got a handful here. We're going to run through them. It's not every ranked game, but it's games I think are important. First of all, number 12, Notre Dame is at Navy. Fighting Irish, they need ranked wins right now. They need to do everything they can to stay in the playoff race, especially without a conference title to go their way. Navy, the number 25 team in the nation. What a great story they are. Navy and Army. Army is also playing Notre Dame later this year. Have been phenomenal teams. They started passing the football, which I didn't think was allowed at any of the military academies. Yet here they are doing it, and they're doing it at a high level. Navy is a high-scoring, high-flying offense. Is Notre Dame ready for them? I would assume so. They're the more talented team on paper. We're going to find out. And this is a huge game for the Fighting Irish. Washington at number 13, Indiana. I almost didn't put this game on my list. There's one reason I did. And that's because College Game Day is there this morning. But it's not even just that. They are celebrating the coach. Lee Corso is returning to Indiana, where he started his whole journey. The vibes, they got to be immaculate. It's the first time ever that Game Day has gone to Bloomington, too. This is going to be such an intoxicating atmosphere in the best way possible. I would love to be in Bloomington for this game. Washington, they are what they are. I think the Hoosiers are going to just have a very exciting, intense environment in this game. Oklahoma at number 18, Ole Miss. This isn't a huge game to me. The Rebels have to get back on track. They're already at 2 losses in the conference. They can't afford a third. They are barely alive right now in the SEC. They're out of the SEC for the championship game, as far as I'm concerned. But maybe they can keep their lives to be an at-large team. Oklahoma stinks. They are not ready for the Big 12. They found that out this year. Number 20, Illinois is at top-ranked Oregon. Is this a trap game for the Ducks? No. But it is another ranked team in their own conference. Continue to stack that resume. The Fighting Illini are pretty solid too. Luke Altmaier has been a phenomenal story for college football. I don't know if they're ready for the Ducks. I don't know if they're ready to go to Eugene. Number 21, Mizzou at number 15, Bama. Bama is in free fall. Mizzou may look to put the final dagger in Bama's season. Let's face it, Bama has underwhelmed this year. They stunned Georgia, and then they have proceeded to lose to Vanderbilt, and they lost. Of course, I can't remember. Who was their second loss to? I'll have to pull it up. But they have had 2 inexcusable losses that they just simply could not afford this year. And you are at the mercy of the rest of your schedule, where you still have to play. They lost to Tennessee. That's what it was. You still have to play LSU. You still have the Iron Bowl on your schedule. Bama's got to win out if they want to be an at-large team. I also think they're probably out of the SEC. They would need Georgia and Texas to get at least another loss. I don't know if Georgia's losing another game this year. Number 5, Texas at number 25, Vandy. Speaking of those 2 teams, Texas, they got a rebound, and Vandy is the Giant Slayers. They're the ones who dethroned number 1 Alabama. They did it in Nashville. Well, Texas is coming to Nashville. Vandy is 1 game away from bowling. This might be the game. Could you imagine, if you are a Commodores fan, knocking off Alabama and Texas in the same season? I would be insufferable if I was a Vanderbilt alum. I'm so excited for Vandy this year. And Vandy is, in my opinion, the best story in college football. The military academies have been great. Some of the other lower ranked schools and overlooked schools have been a lot of fun too, like UNLV has been really cool to see thrive. But it's Vanderbilt, man. They have been the laughingstock of college football for decades. They have been one of those teams where you're like, they're in the SEC? Really? Man, what a great season. Beating Alabama is already the best season ever. Beating Texas? Oh my God, it wouldn't get any better. Last game, if you're looking for the real, quote unquote, real game of the week, it's this one. Number 8, LSU at number 14, Texas A&M. Who is the real SEC dark horse? Texas A&M, I'm not going to lie. I was out on them to start the year, and I felt pretty good about that. They lost to Notre Dame at Kyle Field. I remember there was a really funny meme going around that was like, Kyle Field is such a tough place to play. Even the Aggies can't win there. Well, Aggies have rebounded, and they've done it with just a phenomenal defense. Nick Scorton is just terrific off the edge. They're doing a really good job on offense, too. They're just doing a great job under Mike Elko right now. LSU, after their loss to USC in week 1, which looks worse by the week, not good. They've dominated ever since. That quarterback, Garrett Nussmeier, he's a real deal. And he is dealing right now. And Caden Durham, the running back. Fun fact, ASU was really, really in on Caden Durham, but unfortunately they came up short. That's okay. They got Jason Brown, and he's going to be the future. LSU is good. They also have a really good defense. They're doing it without Harold Perkins, who tore his ACL. This is a fun team. This is a fun game. This is probably game of the week. I'm really excited to see what happens. But those are the games that you should be watching, ASU fans. If you are looking for something to do today, I would encourage you, the number 1 game to pay attention to has got to be Oklahoma State at Baylor. They're your upcoming foe. We want to be sure that OK State is who they are and that they're not about to completely rebound. That running back, Ollie Gordon, is pretty darn good. Cincinnati, Colorado. That's a really underrated game. Gotta tune into that one. Stay up a little later. I think it's like 6 p.m. or 8 p.m. kickoff. I can't remember. Stay up for that game. It's going to be good. And then in the grand scheme of things, number 5, Texas at number 25, Vandy has my heart. And of course, number 8, LSU at number 14, Texas A&M. Those are the games I'm watching. I encourage you guys to tune into them as well. I also encourage you to hit like, subscribe, and turn on notifications wherever you're getting your shows, and stay in touch with the Locked On Sun Devils podcast by following me on Twitter at Richie Bradshaw 36, the podcast at LO_Sun Devils. I appreciate each and every single one of you for tuning in and making us your first listen of the day. I will see you next time. And until then, you keep it locked right here on Locked On Sun Devils.